Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered if taking care of yourself during pregnancy can really make a difference down the line? Well, today we're diving into a study that re-examines just that, looking at something called maternal health literacy, psychological empowerment, and health-promoting behaviors. So imagine this. A previous study by Chen and colleagues looked at pregnant women in rural China. They found that when women had higher health literacy, meaning they understood health information better and felt more psychologically empowered, meaning they felt in control and capable, they were more likely to engage in healthy behaviors like eating well and getting enough rest. The original study suggested that if we help moms with their health literacy and empowerment early on, it could boost their healthy habits throughout pregnancy. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? But science is all about questioning and checking. That is where our current paper comes in. The researchers here noticed something. While the original study found positive connections over time, they wondered if those connections were truly showing cause and effect, or if something else was going on. They call these reciprocal longitudinal influences, which basically means things affecting each other back and forth over time. But they point out that just because two things happen at different times doesn't automatically mean one caused the other. Sometimes, statistical quirks can make it look that way. So their mission was to check if the original findings were super solid or if they might be a bit shaky when looked at from different angles. Now, they couldn't get their hands on the original data, which is a common challenge. So what did they do? They cleverly created fake data, but this wasn't just random guessing. They made this fake data match the exact size of the original group of women and the way all the different measurements were related to each other, the correlation matrix. This way, their analysis should give them results very similar to what the original researchers would have gotten if they used their exact data. It is like recreating a recipe with the same ingredients and measurements to see if you get the same cake. And here is where things get interesting. When they tried out different ways of analyzing this data, the results started to change a lot. It was like looking at the same photo through different colored filters. The picture looks different depending on the filter. Some of these different analysis methods suggested that there were positive effects over time, just like the original study. But others hinted at negative effects, meaning one thing might actually decrease the other, or no significant effects at all, meaning there wasn't a strong enough connection to be sure. This is a crucial point. If your results change wildly depending on how you crunch the numbers, it makes it harder to trust any single result. Think about it like this. If you ask 3 different mechanics to fix your car, and one says it needs a new engine, another says it just needs an oil change, and the third says there is nothing wrong with it, you'd probably be pretty confused and unsure who to believe. That is kind of what they found here. The prospective effects, which means effects that look into the future, weren't consistently showing up. So, they didn't just stop at looking at each analysis separately. They did something called a meta-analysis, which is like taking all those different results and combining them to get an average or an overall picture. And when they did that, the combined result was that none of the effects were strong enough to be called statistically significant. Remember, statistical significance is like a flukometer. The lower the p-value, the less likely the result is just a random chance. When an effect isn't statistically significant, it means the observed pattern could very well just be due to random luck, and not a real underlying relationship. This is the big takeaway. The researchers are saying, hold on a minute, the strong conclusions made by Chen et al. About how health literacy and empowerment directly influence healthy behaviors over time might need to be rethought. The connections they saw could be statistical artifacts, meaning they appeared because of the way the data was analyzed rather than representing a true cause and effect relationship. It doesn't mean the original researchers did anything wrong, but it suggests that their findings might not be as straightforward as they initially seemed. This leads to a broader point about how science should be done. They're advocating for what is called multiverse analysis. Imagine all the possible ways you could analyze a dataset. A multiverse analysis is about exploring many of those reasonable possibilities, not just sticking to one. It is like opening up all the different doors in a house before deciding which one leads to the best view. By looking at many different models and then combining the evidence, scientists can get a much more robust and trustworthy picture of what is really going on. It helps avoid drawing strong conclusions from just one potentially misleading path. To further illustrate their point, they proposed an alternative model. Think of it like this. Instead of health literacy at week 1 directly affecting health behaviors at week 2, and so on, what if there is an underlying factor, like a general sense of well-being or positive self-regard, that influences all of these things at all times? In their proposed model, the different measurements of maternal health literacy are all pointing to a general health literacy factor. This factor, in turn, is influenced by something called positive self-evaluation. And this same positive self-evaluation factor is also influencing psychological empowerment and health, promoting behaviors at every single time point. The really cool part is that in this alternative model, there are no direct arrows going from health literacy at one time point to empowerment at a later time point, or any of those direct cross-lagged connections that Chen et al. Focused on. Yet, this model still fit the data really well. This suggests that the observed patterns of correlations could be explained by this underlying shared factor of positive self-evaluation, rather than by direct influences between the variables over time. So, what does all this mean for us? The researchers aren't saying there are definitely no real connections between health literacy, empowerment, and healthy behaviors during pregnancy. But they are saying that the evidence as it stands doesn't uniquely prove the original study's interpretation of direct, back-and-forth influences. The findings are more uncertain than initially presented. This highlights how important it is to be critical and look at research from multiple angles. This is a really important message for anyone doing research with observational data, especially data collected over time. Just because you see patterns doesn't automatically mean you found a cause. There could be other explanations, hidden factors, or statistical tricks at play. It is like finding footprints in the sand. Someone walked there, but you don't know if they were running, strolling, or being chased. This is the core advice for the scientific community. Don't just run one analysis and declare victory. Explore different ways to look at your data, and then try to bring all those findings together. If many different, well-reasoned approaches all point to the same conclusion, then you can be much more confident. If they give you wildly different answers, it is a red flag that more investigation is needed. For this specific study, the different results from the various models mean that we can't definitively say that maternal health literacy and psychological empowerment directly cause health-promoting behaviors. Or vice versa, in a continuous loop, the jury is still out and more research is needed before we can make those strong claims. And they've made their work even more transparent by sharing their code. This is fantastic because it means other researchers can use their methods to re-examine other studies that found cross-lagged effects. This kind of openness is key to building more reliable science. So what is my take on all this? I think this paper is a brilliant example of critical thinking in science. It doesn't try to tear down the original study, but rather shows a more rigorous way to test its conclusions. The idea of exploring multiple universes of analysis, as they call it, is powerful. It guards against confirmation bias, where we might subconsciously favor results that fit what we already believe. The alternative model they proposed, with the underlying positive self-evaluation factor, is also really compelling. It offers a simpler, more elegant explanation for the observed patterns without needing to assume direct longitudinal causation. This research reminds us that correlation doesn't equal causation, especially in complex human behaviors. While the original study offered hope for interventions, this reanalysis suggests we need to be more cautious and perhaps look for interventions that target broader aspects of well-being rather than just isolated skills. Future research could definitely build on this by trying to directly measure these underlying factors and see how they influence health behaviors over time. What do you guys think about this? Does this make you question other research you've seen? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science simplified, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the fascinating world of the mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.